got you and your vibes in my mind, I can't get them out, no matter how hard I try. I need you and your heart next to mine, yeah, I'm all about keeping it you and I. When you're here, you spark chemical reactions, your aura strikes like lightning. Got no words, I'm just drowning in attraction. Only one way to describe it. It's electric, can you feel it? You got the only touch that takes me high. It's electric, I'm up in my feelings. Got double vision 'cause of you tonight. It's electric.
Think about the times you let me go, falling through the cracks, emotional. I struggle to see what your reasons are. Sitting in your balance, silence breaks my heart. Turn the key, used to be our getaway car. Now I only wanna get away from where we are. Gotta find my way to you, even though you're next to me. No matter what I do, your heart is drifting out of reach. Head on the water, I'm swimming hard and trying to keep this alive. Gotta find my way to you.
Look left, look right. And I come with a hook right. Hook right, hook right. This what the angles look like. Way up, stood high. Taking the view when it look right. And oh, it's the good life. Whipping the sauce when I cook like. Look left, look right, yeah, yeah. Come with a hook right. Hook right, hook right, hook right. Make all the man them look twice. I'm way up, stood high. But I've been in the field like Suge Knight. And they know this took time. This what a legacy look like. This what a come with a come with a taking the view when it look right. And oh, it's the good life. Whipping the sauce when I cook like. Look left, look right, yeah, yeah. Come with a hook right. Hook right, hook right, hook right. Make all the man them look twice. I'm way up, stood high. But I've been in the field like Suge Knight. And they know this took time. This what a legacy look like. This what a come with a got nothing to hide. I got nothing to hide. I got nothing to hide. Got nothing to hide. Got nothing to hide. I got nothing to hide. I got nothing
Good evening, everyone who is riding in a quarter of an hour, people who are viewing and who are participating. So welcome everybody for this fifth edition, fifth taste of Spring Classics. We had already the True Flanders fields. We had the high hills of Flanders, the Amstel. Last week we have the Amstel. So today we have the Hell of the North, and next week or in 10 days we have La Doyenne, the last one, the oldest classic race we have. So who are we? Well, my name, I'm Eddie Botteldorn. I work freelance for Sportza Radio, and for technical and more assistance and better assistance, I have Jamie Anderson here with me. Jamie, welcome here in the studio. In less than a quarter of an hour, they will be starting their race, the Hell of the North, and the word is well chosen. But for the people who don't know you, you have already a long career, a career that started at 15 years because you were one of 6 brothers and sisters. You are Australian. You went to university. You were the only one in your family who got to university because it was a necessity for working for your family. And then you started an academic career. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, actually, as a kid growing up in Australia, Eddie, my dream was to turn professional because I raced the road and the track and top sport level in Australia as a teenager. But yeah, I came from a very big family, and also, when I was in my late teens, actually, my dad became ill, and unfortunately, I had to end my cycling career prematurely.
Yeah.
So I went on to studies and became an academic, a professor teaching in business schools around the world, and also being a conference event speaker for many years.
You traveled around the world for 20 years, and they sometimes say at 40 or nearly at 40, people start to think about their future. That's what you did, and together with your wife, you sat around the table, you draw, the two of you draw a picture, and then you decided that you had to do something else in your life. 80% of the job you did, you didn't like anymore when you were traveling around the world, so you made a switch.
Yeah, it was a switch, and I mean, we should mention that along the way I married a Belgian girl from the Kempen here in Belgium.
It's the best choice.
Of course, I, as someone who loves cycling, I definitely made a good choice there. But you're absolutely right. You know, I had a long career, but realised actually that my real passion was in cycling, and also I'd lived with some regret having to give up my cycling career early. So. The first step for me actually was to get back into competitive racing, and I did that at the masters level because by then I was past 40, and I had some okay results with that.
2015, you got the bronze medal in Torino.
That's right. Actually, 2013, 4 years after getting back on my bike,
Yeah.
I got a bronze medal in the World Masters in Torino.
Turkey, yes.
And since then, I've had podiums at the UCI Gran Fondo World level, at the European Masters Games level. I'm currently the European champion, actually, for Masters for the time trial in the European Masters Games. Yeah.
And so you like this region so much, the Flanders. There is no better place to live or to stay. And last year you opened even a hotel, the Flandrien Hotel.
Absolutely right.
In Brakel, in Parike, in fact, but it's a sub community from Brakel, and it goes very well. Eh?
That's right. Well, we opened the Flandrien Hotel in July last year, and that really was, in a way, aligning the two parts of my life. I mean, I'm speaking, I'm a professor, I teach. So actually the Flandrien Hotel is quite a special place because we do run it as a hotel. We have guests coming from all over the world to ride their bikes. But also we have a lot of people from companies coming in, leadership teams and management teams who come in to have team buildings and other exercises, workshops with us as well. And then, of course, the other thing that I absolutely love at the hotel is we also welcome quite a lot of professional teams. Yeah.
And you're not the only Australian in the region there, because not far from where you live, Alan Piper is also.
That's right. Well, actually, the Brakel is, of course, in a way, famous for Australians because Peter Van, but he's not Australian. He's not Australian, but he's obviously famous from Brakel. But of course, the other famous boy from Brakel is Robbie McEwen, who's married to a girl from the local area. And then, of course, Alan Piper is actually a neighbour of ours. I've got to know Alan well over the last year, and that's been an amazing experience for me because as a kid growing up in Australia, of course, one of my heroes was Alan Piper, and I never imagined that I'd be having him as a neighbour. And actually, if you see our jerseys and you see our logo at the Flandrien Hotel, our jerseys and our logos are actually based on that Peugeot Michelin team colours of Alan Piper from the early 80s.
Yeah. So one thing, I go a little bit back. You in school, they asked you what would you like to do, who would you like to become, and your answer was there. I think I want to become Greg LeMond, and they told Greg LeHou.
Yeah. Well, Australia, cycling wasn't so big in Australia in the early 80s when I got started. But of course it is now. And of course we're going to be talking about the Hell of the North tonight. We had Stuart O'Grady, who won on the cobbles in 2007. Matthew Heyman, who's a friend of mine, won in 2016. So it's not just the area of Brakel that has a special connection with the Australians. We also have a big connection with the Hell of the North.
Yep. So you stay actively, but you're still competing with the Masters, or it's on a lower level?
Well, Eddie, what I always say to people is that we're juggling three balls in life, right? We have our career, we have our family, and then we have our passion. In my case, a passion for cycling. And it's my belief that you can keep two of those balls at a high level at any one time, but it's very difficult to do all three. So, of course, as an entrepreneur and someone who started a new business, there's a lot of energy going into the hotel right now. I still like to be a good husband and dad. So I'm still riding my bike almost every day, but not competing as much as I was up until 2020.
You have to, because I think you have visitors who are well trained, so when you go to ride with them, you have to be in good shape.
Yeah, it's true, Eddie, and some of them have seen some of my TED talks and my online talks, and so they come with the expectation that I'm in good shape. But I stay in good shape. I can still ride the Mood or the Bosberg or the Koppenberg, all the climbs in the area. So I'm okay with that. Yeah.
We have the ROUVY tour. In fact, we have the 4th of 5. But one important thing we can mention tonight is that Jamie Anderson becomes the first ambassador of the Benelux League in the ROUVY tract.
Absolutely, looking forward to it. I've actually been a huge fan of ROUVY for the past 3 years, so it's been my platform of choice for racing. So, however, up until recently, we couldn't do these amazing rides here in the north of Europe, in the Netherlands and France and Belgium. So, I did a lot of ROUVY racing the last 2 winters, and I love the platform. For me, the immersive video, the real footage of the roads that you're on, it beats an animated world anytime. So I really love it. And I've even had some okay results. I've won a few ROUVY races, a few Italian races last winter as well.
And it became more and more, cycling becomes more and more international. We have an Eritrean who wins Ghent-Wevelgem.
Yep.
Today, the 5th stage of the Tour of Turkey was even an Australian who won the 5th stage.
There you go. No, we're always there, and I'm a huge fan, of course, of the Mitchelton Giant team now. And it's true, but not just becoming internationalised. I think the other thing that we'll see tonight, and certainly we see at the Flandrian Hotel, is the number of women that are getting into cycling.
Yes,
and we're big supporters of women's cycling. We support several pro-women's teams that come and stay with us as well. So I think diversity and gender inclusion, it's a good thing in cycling.
Okay. People who were already watching a few times here, we are in Ghent now. We are in the Barvatar place here. It's very important to come to game here. You can sit, you can drink, you can eat, you can meet people, you can go international. So people who weren't here up till today, they have to come here and they can meet in real life people who they play with. So it's also important because with COVID, everything became even more online.
Very, very much so. And I think it's this hybrid world that we're living in now. People, esports, it's a wonderful experience, but we also see that people want to meet face to face. They want to ride face to face. So I think we have the best of both worlds. I think for the international participants, the great thing is that they can now ride these incredible routes, as I said, in France, Belgium, and the Netherlands.
Okay, so we are starting in 3.5 minutes. We have a local rider here. We have here in the studio Frederick Van Reckem. He's 42 years old. He rode last week the gold race, the Amstel. So I thought he got the 27th place. So he's a very good rider. He was doing some warming up. He's sweating a lot. Maybe we'll tell something about it later for the warming up because it's not always good. You are very warm or you are blood, sweat and tears. So we are starting in 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Something about the race itself. It's 36 kilometers. It's always between 30 and 40 kilometers. And we have 13 kilometers of cobblestones, 10 sections.
Absolutely. I think we've got a great selection of cobbles today from the really 5-star, really tough sections like the Carrefour del Abra. And then we have some of the less heavy but still very difficult sections. So a really good mix today across the race, which will really split up the peloton, I think, as we start. I mean, one thing we will always see in a ROUVY race is an incredibly fast, intensive start. The numbers that these guys have to put out, men and women, to stay in that front group is very close to what you'd be putting out at the pro continental certainly level, if not at the World Tour level for some of the top riders.
Yeah. 10 sections, so we'll see on the screen the names and the distance. The longest we do today is 3 kilometers, and it's a 5-star section, a cobblestone section. So it has something to do with the length and the difficulties, because not every cobblestone is as easy or as difficult. You have Les Amis de Paris-Roubaix, who every year try to get them better, but in fact they don't have to be too good either.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think the question that people might be asking watching this is, how do you feel the cobbles when you're in a virtual race? And that's also what ROUVY does very, very well. So actually the effort required, once you hit those cobblestones to maintain your speed and your wattage increases a lot. So it's not, seeing it on the screen, it's not that you're not feeling the cobbles, because you really do need to up your intensity once you hit those sections, or you'll be gapped very quickly.
Okay, so I heard we have 176 competitors. We have men and female riders. So the first section is after about 5-6 kilometers, most en pavé. So they have some warming up. But what could you advise in a few words people who do this race before starting?
One of the mistakes that people actually make, Eddie, is to warm up. All right, and what we actually talk about in a race like this is we're looking at muscle activation, because the last thing you want to be doing is sweating really heavily before you start, because once you start to sweat a lot, what happens is your blood flow is going to the surface of your skin to cool rather than going to your working muscles.
Okay, we'll have the possibility to talk about this later in the race. So we do the countdown. We have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and there they go for their 36-kilometer race. And we are now following someone from D. Johnson. He's going in front. Is this a good idea to position in front of a race? I know it's an online race, but in real life also, when you fall, it's a better thing to be in front of the race.
Well, I think what we'll see very, very quickly, and you start to see it now, that for the first 4 to 5 minutes of a race like this, we'll typically be seeing the riders in the front group doing over 5, even over 6 watts per kilogram.
Yep.
Now, why is that? Because that front group really tries to split from the peloton. So this is extremely intensive. We can see our rider here in the studio outside now, full gas, because you have a drafting effect with ROUVY. So if you actually lose contact with that front group, then you're essentially chasing. So you'll see here for this first 4 or 5 minutes, as you can see right now, the guys typically in that front group, they're all over 5 watts a kilo right now, 5.5, very intensive.
Yeah, we have even one who goes nearly 6, or he was nearly 6 wattage per kilogram. Can you explain in a few words on what this is based?
Yeah, so what we're looking at is the power that's being put through the pedals right now, and that's then extrapolated according to the rider's body weight.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we talk about wattage per kilogram. Yeah. So, for me, in a race like this, the first 5 minutes, my race weight would be around 65 kilograms, and I'll be putting out something like 370, 380 watts for the first 4 to 5 minutes. So you divide that body weight by the total wattage. So this is very significant. And again, Eddie, when we look at these numbers, you have to understand that to get a world tour contract, a pro continental stepping into professional, you need to be doing, say, over 6.5 watts a kilogram for the first 5 minutes. So some of the people you would see here, when you start to see those numbers, we start to understand how tough this race can be.
Yeah, so we'll watch what they are doing. Snyder is in the front now. Ivan Segan, I see some names. I see Segan, but while they are racing, while they are doing the first cobblestone section, it's the first one is Mont-Saint-Pavel. It's 3 kilometers. You meet even important people who were former racers, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, I've done some races, Pedal Italy events in last winter, and I was doing a race called the DJ 100, quite a famous race in Italy. I was in a front group in a breakaway, and I saw a guy's name pop up, and that was Balan.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, someone's created an avatar with the name of Alessandro Balan. But as it turned out, I then looked at the live stream on the Facebook, and I saw it was the real Alessandro Balan. So in these races, these virtual races, you could well be racing against former World Tour professionals.
Yep. In real cycling, it's incredible how many nationalities we have nowadays. We see it also in the ROUVY sections here that they come from everywhere in the world. Eh?
Yeah, absolutely. So ROUVY as a platform is very international. I mean, tonight we have obviously people coming from across Europe, but we have also people from North America. This race itself actually is run across 3 different time zones. So there are 3 different events to cover the different regions in the world. But what we can start to see now is you can really already see that the race is starting to open up, that there is a front group now taking shape that are away. And the reason for that is that, as I said, they've really put in that big watts in the first 3 to 5 minutes of the event. Yep. They try to create that gap. And what you'll then tend to see is after that 5 to 7 minute period, the intensity comes down just a little bit. People take a little bit of respite, and then they'll be saving some energy for when they hit those next cobbled sections.
What is the biggest mistake the people who are now in front can make? Or do they know their body sufficiently to know I can maintain this, I can handle this?
Yeah. The biggest mistake in a virtual event is to start too hard. Okay, and the risk there is that you get into the red, you go over your threshold, and it's very hard to come back from that. Now, the other thing to understand is that in our bodies we have a what's called glycogen, and that's sugars that we need to burn when we get into that really high level of intensity. And for most of us, we're only carrying about 6 or 7 minutes worth of glycogen at that very high level. So if you burn that too quickly, then you'll see riders often it blowing up, exploding, not having those fast burn sugars to do those big efforts towards the end.
Yeah, we see now one rider, Raphael, I think it's a Frenchman, before Bramba and Suzek, Czech riders also. Is it also important that you don't go too much in the front, that you stay in the back of another rider because you win some wattage also?
There is. So there is a drafting effect in ROUVY. So when you're when there is a gap, you will actually see an indicator on the screen of how far you are behind the rider in front, and your objective is to always close that gap, because once you do close and you are behind another rider, you will gain an advantage of a few watts from that drafting effect. So at the moment we see, our riders, really at the front pushing hard. So usually, what I would do in a situation like that is wait for a few riders to come back and then try to ease into the slipstream.
And we see our studio guest rider, Frederick, is on the 11th. He's 11th in the race now for this moment.
And again, if we look at Frederick, he's putting out over 340, 330 watts right now. That's really intense. So again, that is equivalent to what we would sometimes see in that, so certainly elite amateur or pro continental level. That's the threshold. So when we see these kind of numbers, this is impressive power being put out, and very difficult to maintain that over a full hour.
Yeah, these riders now, because you have the spring tour, where you have the Tour of Flanders with some hills. Can't call them really hills, but there is a big difference between the Tour of Flanders, for example. You have the Hell of the North, and you have La Doyenne. That's three totally different races.
Very, very different races, and it suits different rider capabilities. So, when you do have a race like Paris-Roubaix, this is a real power fest, because you don't. People think the Paris-Roubaix is a flat race. It's not. there are climbs. There are false flats. Definitely, wind is a factor, but Paris-Roubaix tends to suit the big, more powerful riders because there are less altitude meters. The more climbing that you have in an event, then you get the advantage, for the punchier, lighter riders who, because when you get into a climb, it's not a linear effect in terms of weight and power output. So it suits different kinds of riders. And definitely for La Doyenne, we'll see different profile of rider probably doing well there.
We see Raphael, I suppose it's a Frenchman, but I don't see the nationality now, but I see sometimes the wattage go to 8. That's very high, eh?
It's very, very high. I mean, I think what is interesting now is we see that we have these 4 riders in front, and then we have a gap of about 100 meters to a chase group. Yep. So we've got 4 guys who are pretty much sort of pulling together now. You will see that even they are dropping back. They're taking turns at the front in a way. So what you will actually see there in the column, you can see the gaps between the riders. So now the gap's opening up again. So you've got 8 meters, between each rider or so. That's not efficient for those, especially those riders in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place. They need to close that gap because they're putting out effort there when they should be trying to hold the wheel of that rider in front. What you see in that group behind, you see that there's a lot of riders there clustered close together. So those riders, particularly in the following positions, will be benefiting. Now
we have the second cobblestone section. It's 700 meters, 2 stars. Shouldn't be too difficult. Is there a possibility for the riders who got a little bit back to come back on this stroke, or do you have to do it between the cobblestone sections? What is the best thing to do? Or follow your body?
What you're seeing here is that the riders are putting in big efforts on the cobbled sections. So it really comes down to their understanding of what their what we call 1 hour threshold power is. Because a lot of people know what their 5-minute power or 20-minute power is, but in a race like this, it's going to be around an hour. So the risk is that if you don't have a really good understanding of what average power you can put out for that hour, then you're going to go too deep, too soon. And what you'll see is some riders will have a profile where they have a very high wattage, 340, 350 for the first 20 or 30 minutes. But then in the second half of that race, that wattage is 250, 260, which is mean they've blown up, right? So what you'll see here is that the riders are trying to maintain a tempo that they know that they can sustain for 1 hour.
Yeah, we follow a Belgian. He is in 9th position, Van den Brande. So he he has a small gap. The gap should be around 70 meters.
Yeah. So
that can be.
So
covered,
again, here you
yes.
see with Jay Van Den, he's a little bit no man's land at the moment. Now he's actually eased up. You see that to bring a few riders up to him.
Yeah.
And that's also what you always have to be aware with here in ROUVY is that if you are alone, you look behind. If there's riders 20, 30 meters and you look forward and they're 150 meters, then it's better just to wait up a little bit to get those riders to come back up to you and then get that drafting benefit again. What it then depends on is, how hard are those riders in the chasing group following? Are they taking turns at the front? Are they setting the pace? Because the objective, of course, is to try to catch those 4 riders out front.
Yeah.
But we still have a long way to go in the race.
Yeah, it's only the beginning. We have how many kilometers we have now done? I try to look here, but I think it must be about 8.
Have a good 28,
7,
28 kilometers to go. So
okay, 7 kilometers.
If we look at that gap now, it's not huge, and we've got a large following group. So that group has an advantage, and I would say that they will close that gap within the next 5 to 10 kilometers.
Yep.
Definitely.
We have our Frederick here. We'll talk with him after the race also, but can you give also some important information for the warming up? Because Frederick was here and he was really warming up very hard, and I heard you say, you said, Jamie, in fact, it's not really good because he will start with a body that's too warm. So
one of the most important things in esports is actually managing your core body temperature. So what we see, of course, is that this is not like what racing up in the road where you have the wind and you have sometimes a cooling effect. So your body can overheat. So what happens here is very simple, because your body, to keep cool, it starts pushing blood to the surface of the skin. That blood is then cooled to return to your core to cool down your core body temperature. Now, there's a problem with that, because if you start to sweat profusely, what does that mean? It means your body is pumping more and more blood to the surface of the skin, and that blood should be going to your working muscles.
Okay.
So what we start to see is when the riders really start to overheat, when they start to sweat profusely, their power levels can drop by 5, 7, even 8% over the course of a race like this. So there is actually there's a actual tool you can use. There's a product called Core, which you put on your heart rate strap, which actually monitors your core temperature. That's what I race with when I do online races. Yeah. And then there are strategies you can use. So of course, ventilation, spray water, and I even race sometimes with an ice vest.
I see now Mr. Raphael and Bramba, they go together there. That's maybe the good tactics, and the drafting, changing, taking the lead, and then is it possible with ROUVY to really nearly to try to imitate the real life, that you say, okay, now I go in front and I take my profits of drafting also?
Very much so. So you're always looking at where are those other riders around you, and being conscious, because sometimes if you're not focusing on the screen as well as watching your numbers, you can find yourself at the front and wasting energy.
Yes.
So what we see now with this front group is also interesting, because you're still seeing these riders are putting out over 5-6 watts per kilogram. That's driving really hard. So what we then look at is that following group. So we look at the following group there with Obweiler and Hagen. They're putting out lower wattages. So if these guys want to catch up, there's now a 300 meter gap. What we need to see is those wattage levels at least equal to, or they have to be marginally higher than the front group. Then the gap will come down. We're not seeing that right now. So they will need to put in an effort, but they may do that over
together.
The cobblestones.
We
see that they're working together.
Yeah.
They're doing that well, and then the question will be, as I said, can they actually work at a level and at a speed that will bring them closer to that front group before?
Yes, so we go to the third cobblestone section. We have Pont Thibault à Ennevelin. It's a session of 1 kilometer and 400 meters. It's a 3-star cobble session, so it's not too difficult.
Eddie, can you say that again? I love this French. I'm Australian, so I'm kind of linguistically handicapped. Whenever I try to pronounce French, my kids just roll around laughing because they're speaking French and Dutch and English. But great pronunciation, I like that. But that's the wonderful thing about these cobblestone sections also, because these roads date back to the Roman times, to Napoleonic times.
that's
So
true, yeah.
you know, these are not just cobblestones. These are historical monuments that these riders are riding over, and that also is what makes the Hell of the North so special. In that many of the roads that they are riding over are really only farm tracks. They're not used as many of course, most of the roads here in Flanders are. They're used daily by traffic and by cyclists. So the condition of these cobblestones is obviously often very, very poor, very tough. And the riders will be feeling that now. ROUVY will have simulated that into the ride experience and the effort that they need to do to get over those cobbles.
Yes, that's also the reaction we got from Frederick when he rode last week the Amstel. Yeah, he says I have done these in real, and besides not moving my bicycle, I have the same effect of what I'm doing on that bike.
Yeah, it's incredible. And again, if we think about where esports is today compared to where we were 10 years ago with indoor trainers, now with the smart trainers able to simulate gradients, the road surfaces, because road surfaces, even here in Flanders, of course, we have many different road surfaces. So ROUVY is working on factoring in those variables to the software underpinning the event. So very realistic simulation, and you certainly feel it when you're on the bike.
We see now that Bramba has to leave a little gap, 20 meters on Raphael. Could this mean that Raphael feels that Bramba is taking profit of him and says, I'll go in front alone? Or are there tactics also you have to keep in mind?
Well, I mean, to be honest, if we look at...
Because some people know each other from the ROUVY tracks they did already.
They will, so they can try to attack. But, you know, you're seeing Raphael, when he really put the pedals down there, he was doing almost 7 watts per kilogram. So again, with those kind of numbers, he could be getting a contract with a pro team if he was in that development track.
You have statistics on this.
We have absolutely. So what we see here is that, you know, for there's different categories of racing, but when we start talking professional level, we can talk about professional continental level, pro continental, which is a stepping stone up to the world tour. And there, you know, typically what we're seeing to just be in the range of that sort of potential, then as a man, you should have a 5-minute power output somewhere between 6.1 and 7 kilograms.
I just see that I interrupt you. That Frederick is in 22nd position,
which is doing
in
a race like this is doing very, very well. And he's 42 years old. He'll be racing against some people here who are in their 20s.
And in professional life, he can come to your hotel because he washes the windows.
Excellent. Well, we need him. We need that.
Yeah, so after the race, you can
especially when we're that's
contact
great.
him.
That's great. No, so as we're saying, so that and then when we look at the women's racing, again, this sort of pro continental level, they're doing somewhere between 4.6 and 5.8 watts for that 5-minute period.
Okay.
Then when we look at the hour long, I'll come back to those numbers later, but look at the numbers we're seeing here. So these are really, really impressive numbers in the front end of this race.
Yep. So we talked about the female we have here. Yes, it's a Dutch girl, Heike Hart. Then German girl. On second place we have Sylvia de Gast. She is from the Netherlands.
Yep.
Then we have Olga Rosinski. I think it must be Slovakia. Then we have Dagmar Probiljova. I hope I pronounced their names in the right way. On fourth position. And then the first Belgian rider is Sarah Verbeek. And well, she's following at 1 kilometer. So that there is a gap
There's
between the front riders.
Definitely a gap, and you can see that also in the average speeds. Whereas the two front riders here, again, we could look at their I don't want to spend the whole time talking about watts per kilogram, but just simply look at the speeds. The girls at the front there are doing 38, 39 kilometers an hour. So really riding very strongly, and certainly more strongly than many of the guys in the race, doing very, very well.
Yeah. Yep. 5 years ago, we wouldn't talk about women racing maybe on ROUVY.
Well, it's incredible. And we see this at the Flandrian Hotel. Almost a third of our guests now coming into the hotel from Belgium and internationally are women. A lot of Dutch, a lot of Belgian women from the UK, Australia. So we see women cycling really booming, and it's just fantastic to see. And the level of competition here is just great. Yep.
Schneider is still in front there. He got in front because Raphael was in front, and now he took the lead. Yeah, it must be something tactical between these two. Maybe Snyder tries to show I'm in good shape too. You won't put me on a certain distance.
Yeah. Well, again, you can see that the riders will, from time to time, just take a pause, and you see that the wattage has really dropped down, and maybe they're now hedging, saying it's better for us to wait for that chasing group, wait for some other riders. But it is really, really a war of attrition, this race, because of the profile of the course. And I think what we'll be seeing, certainly with the riders who understand their numbers, will be that they'll just be now taking care not to go over their threshold and just stay at a level that they can sustain. And if possible, that'll involve them coming back, maybe putting in a big effort over one of the cobbled sections. But we are seeing the gaps, the gaps are there, dropping back to the second group. Quite some big gaps along the way, and this is very typical for an esports race, that we have races of varying ability, and it's therefore spread out across the course.
So now we see the position of Mr. Hagen from Canada in 7th position there at 500 meters. So that's still possible to do. Maybe he's a diesel starter and he will get in front after halfway.
When these gaps start opening up like that, it gets more and more difficult to come back, that's for sure. Although, we also have mechanicals. We also have, we don't have flat tires, of course, in an esports race, but believe you me, I've been in races where I've been in the front 4 or 5 guys,
but
and
you can
suddenly
get flat legs.
I've lost Wi-Fi connectivity.
Yeah.
Or you have a sensor on your bike. You have the ANT sensor, which is actually sending the signals to the to your the Garmin or the connection to the computer. So if you lose Wi-Fi connectivity, you lose Bluetooth, and suddenly you just see your rider, your avatar, stepping off the bike. That's happened to me before. So. So the race is never over till it's over. So let's see how it evolves.
Raffle and Snyder, they are changing all the time, eh?
Yeah. The race is definitely on between those two. You see the gaps opening up now a little bit to the guys
10,
in 3rd, 4th position. But as I said, I think definitely those two now, Susek and Bramba, they're at risk of being caught by some of the riders behind, because we're not even halfway into the race yet.
Yep. So try to watch. He comes back. Yeah, he comes back nearly 10 meters. So he can take some profit now. Bramba from Susek. And wait a little bit what he intends to do on the next couple session, the 4th one we're having in a few moments. So we have done 16 kilometers already, so we are one third of the race is already. Oh, there was a car on the race, but okay, he got away in time.
Yeah. I think this is marvelous. Again, if we look at ROUVY and you really get that feeling, and you see the villages, you see the clouds, you see the water on the roads. It's just a fabulous experience, and I think we saw this with the other races in this series. And for us actually as a hotel, these are wonderful events for us, because I think once you've done these roads virtually, and I spoke about many of the races that I've done in the Pedal Italy series. I've done the Stelvio, I've done some of the famous climbs, and it really gave me a desire to go there in person. So I think it's great to see all these international, riders in the hell of the north, and I'm sure this will be giving them more motivation to come here in person.
We are in Templev, the next session. It's not a long one. And we're now following Kuzak. He is in 3rd position at 250 meters. So he has Bramba, who is not far behind. So the best thing maybe to do is these two get together. Why don't the first ones? Why do they keep a distance?
That's a good question. I mean, if I was Snyder, I would be trying to hang on to the back wheel of Raphael as closely as possible, because
3rd and 4th one they get together now. But
there is a reason. There is a real reason for that. I mean, obviously, with the way the software works and the platform works, is that when there is an attack or an effort, it's not like when you're riding on the road. You see that attack happen. You physically see the rider get out of the seat. You see him attack. In an esports setting, you see there's always a slight lag between seeing that avatar and seeing the increase in wattages come through. So that's sometimes why you see this sort of yo-yo effect, where a rider's losing the wheel, because there is that slight lag when the other rider attacks. That becomes especially dangerous when you're coming into the last 2 kilometers, a kilometer of the race, because that's the real opportunity to launch an early attack. Because of that lag, if people miss the increase in the wattage, the numbers coming up, you can very quickly put in 20, 25 meters into your competition.
Yeah, there we can see the percentage. It's nearly flat, but some cobblestone sections are going up 1 degree, 1.2, 1.3. That's not going up, but it's an extra point you have to take in your mind. Eh?
You will feel it. And again, for the different cobbled sections, they have different star ratings. So, the Carrefour de l'Arbre is a 5-star section. So the way that ROUVY has created this race, that will require much more effort to get over those cobbles. And that one that's close to the finish. That will be, I think, that will be the decision maker between Snyder and Raphael.
Yep.
Who will make a gap in that section?
Carrefour de l'Arbre, there is a good restaurant at the end of Carrefour de l'Arbre. It has 1 Michelin star. And the story is of Carrefour de l'Arbre that Belgian people bought this old house, stone by stone. They put it down and they rebuild it. And in fact, we go back to the Middle Ages to find the first traces of that house at the end. It's known by, we'll see it next week when we have the
it's incredible.
Paris-Roubaix.
I'm Australian.
Story, yeah.
I'm Australian, so if we have a building in Australia that's 100 years old, we call it old. When I met my wife and I came to Belgium, and then we would walk into a building and I say, wow, this is old, and it would be from the 1800s, and she'd just laugh at me, Eddie. She'd say, oh, it's not old at all.
Frederick is doing well. He stays in his good position, 23rd. So what is the best thing to do now? To stay in that group for him and to take some profit there?
Yeah, I think what we see here is that he's in a group now, and a sizable group. So we've got 6-7 riders there. That's a good group to be with, because the following group is then another 200 meters behind. So he's in a really good group there. And I think with the gaps that we have, then things could come back together. He's riding really hard. We see that. But with a group of 6 or 7, and if they're working together, driving hard, then they could close up. Certainly, he would be in for a top 15 finish here if he can stay with that group and they can connect up with the group in front. And then, as I said, it'll come to those very last couple of sections of cobbles that will make the difference.
So now we're a little bit further than halfway. We have 20 kilometers now. We have still 16 to go. How must you listen to your body now? Is this already a difficult moment for some riders? Because people who are not really active with this, who ride on this ROUVY, for example, these 36 kilometers on a real road represent 80-90 kilometers, the effort?
Yeah. So we're looking at 3 factors here, right? Well, one of them is, as I said, is your body heating. So this is really where the ventilation and the cooling techniques come in. At this point in the race, I would have my kids spraying water over me and putting ice packs down my back to try to reduce my core body temperature, which can have advantages. The second thing is hydration. You have to be hydrated. Now, for a race like this, even 1 hour, you could easily be drinking 3 to 4 bottles. You should be drinking 3 to 4 bottles. So many people make that mistake. They just go with a single bottle. And again, once your dehydration sets in, then you're going to be losing wattage. Now, the third factor there is nutrition. Now, in a race of an hour, you should have certainly enough carbs. You should have eaten 3 or 4 hours before, but certainly in that last 15 to 20 minutes, you can take a caffeine gel, just to give your body that boost of fast sugars and perhaps even a little caffeine hit for that last section.
We just passed the second split. We have 3 splits, and then we have the finish. So now we have still Schneider, but we had already Raphael, who was in front. It's a real battle between these two.
Yeah, and that's the way it goes. And I know how that feels. I mean, I've been in races, international level competitions like this, and you get to know often the 4 or 5 other riders who are going to be with you. Yeah. And then it becomes a real battle, also a mental battle.
Yep. And Bramba and Suzek, they come together. We have 2 riders in front, and we have Snyder and Raphael. Then we have Bramba and Suzek, and then we have the group where Frederick should maybe try to get
definitely
near.
We've got Suzek and Bramba there. They should be. Suzek should be closing and getting onto that wheel. He's kind of stuck in the middle a little bit there. That's a place you don't want to be, and you're on your own. It happens sometimes. And then there's also some splits with the following riders. So they're going to come through. I'll be interested to see how the women are doing again. Hopefully we'll see them come up soon as well. But you can see that the competitors are really, really spread out here. Now, again, coming into those last few sections, that's where we'll make all the difference and trying to really hit the pedals. Interesting as we go through here, you saw a bunker on the right as we came through, showing a little bit the wartime history of this area as well. I love France, Eddie, but I have to say this part of France is probably not the most scenic in the country.
That's true. That's true. So we have a look at Sylvia de Gaste from Holland is still in front. Then we have Heike Hart from Germany. Then we have Olga Rosinski. I think it's Czech Republic. Then we have Dagmar Pribolova, and we have still on 5th position our Sarah Verbeek. She keeps going well.
She's doing well. Heike and Sylvia are doing very well. I mean, they're in the top 30 actually. So doing great. And you see there with the average speeds, very, very strong. These two women, and great to see them having a competition, a bit of a shootout with each other, because there's only 12 meters, 13 meters between the two of them right now. So really nice to see that. Also, we have a battle going on for the women's race between Germany with Heike and Sylvia from the Netherlands. So great to see. And again, you see how the women also who are doing well are using drafting to good effect.
Maybe one thing it's important to mention that the competitors, they can win some prizes. They can also win a Tornado Tom Bonen trainer. Won 3 times the Paris-Roubaix. So I don't think we have to tell much about Tom Bonen. Everybody knows him. We have 5 traveling bicycle travels for the spring races for next year, and then we have sports equipment, and also people can come here to the Barvatar bar here in Ghent, in the center of Ghent, south of Ghent, so you can't miss when you come from the big road. You turn here on Bavatar, and you can come with your wife, and you can come with your kids. You have a shopping center here also, so it's really nice to come here though. So it's important for the riders that in this competition they can win some prizes.
Absolutely, and anyone listening, of course, listening as a spectator, all they need to do is drop into the Flandrian Hotel and mention that they heard the broadcast, and we'll give them a free coffee.
I know we are on the section 6 Juin à Bourgel, 1 kilometer 300, a 3-star session. It's not the most difficult ones, because maybe you know, or people know, that you have Les Amis, the friends of Paris-Roubaix, of Les Pavés de Paris-Roubaix, the cobblestones of Paris-Roubaix, and it's a group of people. They try to put some strokes, some sections in a better shape. Not too good, but they are really a couple of months before we have the race. They are going on every section to see if it's not too difficult or not too dangerous also for the riders, because we have to keep it safe also.
And but there's also something beautiful about the Hell of the North. I mean, it is a very different, not just a different race, but also a very different experience to the Ronde, which we know well. You don't see the VIP tents. You don't see the real commercial, in a way, organization behind the Hell of the North. The Hell of the North is still a very local, very locally loved race. When you go to the Velodrome in Roubaix, it's such a down-to-earth experience. I've been there several times for the finish of the race, and it's really unique. That grassroots, very, very simple approach and openness to local communities.
Yes, and talking about that, you have the experience too at your hotel now. It's incredible. They come from everywhere in the world to see the Flanders and to ride in real what they maybe have done on ROUVY. Eh?
Absolutely, and that's what we see. I mean, we at the hotel, we work very closely with Tourism Vlaanderen. They have a terrific group of guys that have an organization called Cycling in Flanders. They're promoting this inbound cycle tourism, and it's good for everybody. You know, it's great what we see with the organization behind the big races, the Spring Classics. But that is something that all of Belgium and Flanders benefits from when we have these international tourists coming in to ride here.
Yep. Snyder is still in front, but Raphael says, I'm not letting you go. I'm still in the race, so he's coming back. He's nearly in his back wheel.
Yeah. I think I don't think Snyder's going to drop Raphael. The curious thing will be to see what happens in the last couple of kilometres. Who's really going to put down the power and try to get a gap? If not, then we could have a very exciting sprint to the finish. And we see the same with the women's race as well, with those two riders very closely matched at the moment. So, yeah, we see also, I think when you look at this course, you realise that just how difficult it is technically as well, not just the cobble sections, but a lot of these segments that pass through small villages, tight corners. And that's one of the most dangerous parts, actually, of the race when you hit the cobblestones, because when you go into the cobble sections, there are also corners. Some of those have 2, 3, 4 right-handed corners, and that's often where we see in the race that the riders lose the wheel. Once you lose the wheel on one of these tougher sections, then you're really at risk. I remember watching Matthew Heyman in 2016. He was in the group with Stannard and Tom Bonen, Sepp van Marke, and there was a section where it was the Carrefour de l'Arbre, and Stannard leaned on him and he lost contact. And I remember being at home on the edge of the sofa screaming, thinking that his race was over, and he came back. He came back and went on, of course, to win. So
it's never
very
over
exciting.
until it's over,
Well,
but sometimes it's difficult.
Heyman says that he says one rule for Paris-Roubaix, for the Hell of the North, and that's never stop riding.
Yeah, we are following the third in the race now, Bramba from Italy. A gap from 700 meters. I think with with 11 kilometers to go, that won't be easy to get them back.
It's not going to be easy now, but again, we'll see a match between these two. And this is also always an uncomfortable position to be in, because someone's going to miss out on a podium.
And when Bramba and Suzek mention or try to work together, is there a possibility they get back? Because Raphael and Snyder, they are making each other difficult because they don't work together. As we see, they don't work together.
It's going to be hard for these guys to come back with the distance we have. The risk will be, again, if it really depends. I think what we see with these riders is they're sustaining this 4.5, 5.1 watts per kilogram. Very, very strong guys, obviously, but they're holding that consistently. I have seen it many times in these esports races where I'm in a group with 3 or 4 people, and then suddenly one of them just drops because they're finished. They're just blown up.
That's what we don't know. Maybe one of the two. And now Raphael is going. He's taking 40 meters. Maybe Snyder has done a little bit too much, has tried to follow or to show, hey, Mr. Raphael, you have to... I'm there, I'm still there, or the opposite, Mr. Raphael, who thinks Snyder.
It's interesting. You see Raphael surging. You see these surges up over 5.9, 6.1 watts per kilogram. Snyder tends to be just holding a tempo and often pulling back. But there was an attack now by Mr. Raphael, and he's created a gap. So now we'll see with Snyder if he's going to pull it back. And again, you can just look at the watts per kilo numbers. If that number for Raphael is higher, then he's pulling away. Snyder has to be able to match that or do higher, and you've seen his wattage drop here.
And don't forget, we have still 4 cobblestone sections to go, 3-star, 4-star, and a 5-star, the Carrefour de l'Arbre. So, I think Mr. Snyder, he knows how late it is, as we say.
You'll often see more change in the middle of the pack, and again, depending on the fitness of the riders, you often see changes more there because of the different levels of fitness and people starting to fade. Of course, what we don't see here, Eddie, is we don't see heart rate. We don't see the age of the rider. That also tells us a lot. From my experience in these virtual races, I'm pretty much on threshold and over threshold for a whole hour. So a race like this actually can be very similar to a race like a cyclocross or a mountain bike race, in terms of that physiological pressure.
Like Frederick, for example, he told me he was with Elite without a contract racing. So these are already people who have certain qualities of racing.
Well, definitely. I think I've been living here in Belgium for 10 years, and when I started racing here, I realized very quickly that the level here in Belgium across all age group classifications is amongst the highest in the world. So even a master's level kermis, an amateur kermis here, to be in the top 10 in an amateur kermis here in Belgium, you're pretty much at a world level.
Yeah. Now Raphael, he is taking the lead, and it's going a little bit up there, 3% on a bridge there, So, he's taking 130 meters, suddenly it goes very quickly for Rafael.
Yeah, so I
Snyder
think
knows
Schneider's,
he doesn't have to insist.
Yeah,
The
I
race
think
could be
Schneider's,
over for him.
He's obviously saw himself getting into the red, and he's decided to back off the pedals a little bit now, and that makes sense. You know, if the risk is that you're going to really blow up and go into the red and risk getting caught by the guys behind, then it's better just to be satisfied with the podium and then go back to your tempo, which it looks like he's doing now.
Yeah, we see the difference with the wattage per kilogram. There is an enormous difference. It's one watt difference. So that explains the difference.
The difference opening up now.
Opening up for the two of them. We look to the female riders. We have still the German Heike Hart. 4.7, that's not bad. We see Sylvia de Gast. Well, she's trying to get closer. She's 8 meters, so there are two in front. In fact,
they're up there now, and they're really matching each other. We see they're really riding together. That's going to be a really interesting race. There's also a battle going on in 5th and 6th position between Sarah Verdebeek and Hilary. How do I pronounce that?
Hilary Clauet.
Clauet. Thanks, Eddie.
It's a French girl.
There's a nice little battle going on there too, with two riders pretty closely matched riding together. So there'll be a race for that top 5 position there.
When we see the wattage from these women, where would you put them? These are good riders for amateurs. Is this a good wattage in this kind of race?
Looking at this, these would be what we would say category 2 rider numbers. So we have, of course, the World Tour level. We have Pro Continental. Then we have that sort of elite without contract, and then we have category 2, category 3 riders. So these would be category. These sort of numbers are very respectable. Sort of category 2 numbers, depending on which country you're coming from, how the classifications work. And
Frederick, so is still 25th, 26th. Now we are Carrefour de l'Arbre. That's important. The 5-star cobble section, 2 kilometer
very
and
tough
100
race. And you see here, you see here that Mr. Rafael right now, he's putting out over 5 watts per kilogram. So we see him pulling away, really putting the power down for this section to increase that gap. And Snyder has pretty much been satisfied with second. Now he's eased off. Still very respectable at around 4.95 watts per kilogram.
Yeah, no problems for Snyder because the third and the fourth are at 800 meters, 600
so
meters.
Unless he loses a Bluetooth connection. He should be. It's happened to me before, Eddie. I had it happen once with 2 kilometers to go in a race when I was in the top 5, and then suddenly my rider Avatar just got off the bike, and it was a disaster. And I saw the group come up from behind and pass me over. So these things happen just as they do in a real race sometimes.
I think Snyder knows. Okay, I'll try not to go completely down, and I try to keep my position I have now. He's following at 200 meters, and the rest is coming and at 1 kilometer, 800 meters behind him. So he's good for his second position there.
Yeah, we see that.
And Rafael is. He stays at the same advantage. At 200 meters, he put the effort, and now he knows, okay, I can stay at this position.
But again, you look at the scenery here. It really shows that how bleak this race can be. You know, when the clouds are there, and it takes such a tough rider. You know, we of course here in Belgium we say it takes a Flandrian, someone with grit and determination and perseverance. Because of course what we haven't seen today on ROUVY is falls, but in the real race, the Hell of the North, many of the riders will come off 2, 3, even more times over the course of the race. So it really is a race of attrition.
And even he's riding at 42 kilometers an hour.
42.5 kilometers an hour. So that's very fast. And again, ROUVY is, I think, very, very accurate in terms of the feeling of the race, the intensity, but also in tracking the speed, the realistic speed that these guys will be doing over the roads.
And we have the third split now. So young Rafael is still first. Nelson Snyder is in the second position. Then we have Suzak third together with Bramba. That will be a hell of a finish between these two, eh?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. There's going to be a real interesting finish there. And what we'll be looking for, I think, Eddie, coming into that last kilometre or so, is will one of these riders try to launch an attack?
Yeah.
So try to get that element of surprise by doing a jump when the other rider's not expecting it, a big attack, or will it really come down to that last 300-400 meters where we see an out-and-out sprint between them? But I would suspect that in that last kilometre and a half, someone's going to try to jump there. Now, the trick there is in a ROUVY event, if you are in that situation, I've been in that situation many times, the key there is to close to the gap to the person in front.
Yeah.
And then counter-attack.
Okay.
You counter-attack for 200 meters, and then you ease up purposefully, because again, there's the lag. You wait for them to come to you, and the moment that they come to you, you go again.
Okay.
So it's a special technique because of the way the software works, the platform works, that you can do this cat and mouse a little bit.
Okay, yeah, that's a good tactic to keep in mind. Next week, we talk already about next week, we have La Doyenne. It's the oldest in real cycling. It's the oldest one, Luik-Bastenaken-Luik, Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Yeah, but one section still to go here in this race, in this ROUVY race with the Gruson. That's the last one. 1 kilometer 100 is not the most difficult one. 2 stars, so should be good.
It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a great race. And of course, La Doyenne also very, very special for the Australians because that was won by Simon Gerrans.
Yeah, indeed. You have good Australian riders now. I forgot the name of the man who won the 5th stage now of the Tour of Turkey. But
we
is
have
there
many up and coming young riders in the pro peloton right now from Australia.
Yeah.
I mean, Jack Haig. We have many riders, and of course having the team Mitchelton Giant as a World Tour team is also bringing people in. So we see that Frederick is there.
It's getting difficult.
It's getting difficult. You see the wattage there around 3.5, 3.6. So it's natural. This stage of the race, you're going to start fading. And just as we said, I said earlier that we will often see those numbers really start to fade for some riders towards the final phase of the race where they've gone hard very early on. And we see sometimes 20-30% drop in wattages in the final section of the final 15-20 minutes of the race.
Should be a sprint there, eh? There are 7 together there. There's a good.
That's going to be an interesting one. Again, you're going to be see tactically who's going to launch an early attack, who's going to follow, and the cat and mouse tactic that I talked about. Sometimes, as I said, you launch an attack, you get that gap based on that slight lag in the wattages coming through. When that rider comes to you, you see their avatar coming to you, then you go again because there is again a little slight lag there. So you can play this tactically in the race. These things like drafting, the cat and mouse, attacking, trying to drive the gaps.
And now Mr. Raphael is in his last cobblestone section, the Gruson section, 1 kilometer 100, 2 stars. So in fact, he can spread his arms already because he won't lose this race anymore now.
No,
he's nearly 300 meters in front.
Well, he's doing great, and again, still very, very strong with the riding. I think doing over 40 kilometers now.
Maybe they played the cat and mouse game, and he knew he wanted to feel what is Snyder,
you saw that he was doing those probing attacks, and eventually Snyder just popped. He wasn't able to keep up. But he's doing fine. I think we've got the top 3 there now with Bummer coming through as well.
Yeah, we're now at the end of Carrefour de l'Arbre, but that's the restaurant I was talking to you about
on
here.
The left,
on the left,
that's the Belgian,
that's the Belgian
renovated restaurant.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. And now he turns to the right normally.
Yeah.
He goes on the road. You have... that should be, yes, okay. Then, and after 100 meters, he goes to the left, and there he has the last cobblestone. Snyder is now finishing this Carrefour de l'Arbre. I think they will be pleased, the both of them, when they see finish line. I
think so. And then the finish of this race, it's always very special. When we talk about the Hell of the North, of course, the entrance to the velodrome in the event is unique. I was there last year for the finish of the first ever Femme event, and to see the women coming in battered, bruised, elated, shocked, it was an incredible experience, and I really recommend anybody to try to make it there to at least once in their lifetime if they're a passion of cycling.
Yeah, Mr. Schneider, now it's over for him. 300 meters behind, so he knows.
Hey, go easy on Mr. Snyder. Mr. Snyder is doing great. I mean, he's held his own up there. He's still up there. He's going to get on the podium.
It's been a hell of a race. He has done a hell of a race, but he knows the third and the fourth one are behind, so his position won't be in difficulties.
Absolutely right. And we have an Italian there coming in with Brambo at fourth as well. Great to see the Italians, because the Italians have a wonderful track record in the Northern Classics, whether we talk about the Ronde or the Hell of the North. That they've been coming here for many years. I think the first Spring Classic was actually won in 1949 by an Italian at the time of British Scotta.
Yep.
So the Italians have more than half a century of experience racing at the top level here in the north of Europe.
Yep, and the women, will see how the race goes for Sarah Verbeek. She was in 5th position, so in a few minutes we'll know if she was able to keep that 5th position. And now, yes, voila, there he goes, the finish for Mr. Raphael. His 36 kilometers and his 10 cobblestone sections, and now we'll see how much he will be behind Schneider, but the difference is not important. They did an incredible race, the two of them.
Yeah, and you see the gap is not that huge. I think less than probably 15 seconds on the line.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting just to see the numbers for these guys, the average speed, the power numbers as well. But very, very impressive race from both of them. And now the battle will be on for the minor placings coming in. We have Susek coming in. Looks like he will definitely make the podium as well.
Yeah.
And then it'll be an interesting race coming in then for those riders. That group of riders around 500 meters back at the moment. Close. There's 4 of those. So let's see how they come in.
Now maybe it's important you have still some reserves to go, and to in the end the last kilometers give some more wattage.
Very much so, and that's something again which. I talked about the glycogen stores, that if you really have been on the limit early on, that's pretty much spent. So even if someone does attack, your ability to follow, to close a gap becomes very, very difficult. So let's see how that's going to unfold, and if riders do try to attack in that last section, because they're quite closely matched. There's only about 20 meters between 4 of them, from Cunha to Kriekemans and Hagen there in the back of that group. So very, very close.
So there is no real sprint now. There will be maybe for the 6th and the 7th position, and the 8th maybe with Cunha.
Yeah, we see them all coming in now. Yep,
so Suzak is also, the podium is already there. Jung Raphael, Nelson Schneider 2nd, and Karl Suzak 3rd. And then we have an Italian on the 4th place. And now for this 6th, 7th and 8th position, I think we'll have a sprint there.
Yeah, and you can see it now. You can see Cunha launching an attack. You see his wattage going up there.
Yeah.
He did a attack there, 5.5 kilograms. So he was trying to drive a split. But you see Kriekemans coming back. So really exciting now. They're very close. Hagen has dropped back. So you can see there he's got nothing left.
Yeah.
And now you see the attack being launched at over 10 watts per kilogram. So that's a massive effort, and that's not at all being matched by the other guys. So
that's a little bit more jus in the legs.
Absolutely. So he's opened up a good gap there, Kriekemans, coming into the line.
Okay.
And again, that also comes out to training. It's amazing for me to see how many amateur riders spend 15, 20 hours a week on the bicycle, but they don't train these explosive efforts or the sprinting that they need, especially in a race like this.
So we have our first Belgian competitor, Nick Kriekemans, on the 6th position, which is a very good result.
Excellent, and very international top 10. We have France, USA, I think that's Czech Republic, Italy, Austria, Belgium, Portugal, Canada. Also, I guess that is, we have more Czech riders as well. So very, very international race tonight, and incredible to be seeing people from around the world competing together.
In fact, with these ROUVY races, we have a little bit what we see in real life, that cycling is becoming more and more international.
Very much so, and also interesting to see the really top competitors coming from, in a way, the new world countries or the less traditional cycling countries. I'm also a big fan. I do sometimes some of the Asia ROUVY races, also level of competition in Asia, places like Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, also great. So ROUVY has become really an international platform, and it's terrific to see.
Frederick is in 29th position. He's together with some other riders. It's really a tough race between these 6-7 riders there.
Absolutely. We see it now. We see the first women also getting close to the line, which is great. So they'll be coming in. We see Frederick there holding his own. He's with a group of, he
gains 2 positions in the last kilometer.
So let's see what happens now. Who's got some power left, because he can overtake 3 or 4 riders.
What he's doing here, he's really putting his sprint on.
Going full gas. We see him putting everything in. He's now, and you see all of them are really putting the gas down now, 7-8 watts per kilogram.
29th
result.
position.
Very
Big hand of
good.
applause
Great.
for Frederick
Excellent.
Van
Good job.
Reckem.
Good job, Frederick. Top 30.
26th, yes,
Mhm.
26th position. So it's a
Great
very
to
good
see.
race he put down.
And then we have
So very
Heike
good.
there.
Heike
Heike
is the
Hart, first woman.
Sylvia de
in
Gast.
30th.
No, Sylvia de Gast.
Sylvia
I
was
think
there?
the
Mhm.
I thought she was
Yep, there she
Sylvia de
is. Sylvia de
Gast,
Gast.
the Dutch girl, and Heike Hart. So she got in front.
She
In the
did.
last kilometers, she really won the race,
That's
because Heike
fantastic.
Hart was in front most part of the race.
I almost
What
did.
time?
I almost did an Amstel by calling the wrong winner there. Eddie.
Yes, it's how much this year? 2 centimeters.
It was very very close.
Cosnefroy, 1 minute he thought he was winning. This when this happens, you get crazy.
You get crazy. I think definitely that was elation and then deflation, but a young guy, great result.
This is from heaven to hell.
It's happened. It's happened before. It's happened. It's happened to all of us.
Yeah, last year also with Van Aert.
Absolutely. I once there's a wonderful race which is the BXL Tour of Brussels, and
Mhm.
I raced it a few years ago and I got on the podium. I was third for the Masters
Yes.
classification, and then I was standing there ready to go up on the podium, and then they walked up and said, "No, there's been a mistake.
Oh,
We looked at the photo finish, and you were 1 centimeter behind." So
You-
that-
you know-
I
you know
know
what
what that
the-
feels
you-
like. I
you
know
know
what
the-
that feels
you know
like.
the
So
feeling.
then, I'd already sent the photos to my wife and my kids and put everything on my Instagram and stuff. So it was a little bit of deflation to that.
we
It's
look at
sometimes good for
the
us.
top 10. So we have Raphael Jung. There was a battle with him and Schneider. So at the end it was Raphael who won. So Schneider at second position. Karl Suzak 1 minute and 40 seconds behind, together with the Italian El Bramba. And Hans-Peter Obwaller, I think it's Austrian, yes. Then
You said
Nick
Austrian.
Riekman's the best.
There are no kangaroos in Austria, Eddie. You have to be careful with that.
Yeah,
I got
okay.
some
Yeah. Then we have Nick Riekmans in sixth, Lionel Cunha. Yeah, which country?
Portuguese.
Portuguese, yes.
Yep.
And then Mike Hagen from Canada. Then Jean-Luc Crouzil, a Frenchman. And Richard Sprincis. You know
Excellent.
the flag?
Very international. I'd have to look close to Google that one. Wikipedia
Okay.
that one. Very good.
And
I'm
then-
Australian. There's an
Okay.
excuse for me, Eddie. I'm Australian. You're from
Okay.
Europe. You should know all of these flags.
And then we had Witt Veltruski, and from Germany we have Matthias Janssen. And so we have a Belgian at the 6th position, and Frederick at the 26th, I think. And we have a Dutch girl that won with the female riders.
Excellent.
We have Stijn, we have another Belgian, Stijn Hoschpier, 22nd, yes, we forgot there were other Belgian riders before Frederick Van Reckem, and
So
Sylvia de Gast, as we said, was the first. 29th overall. That's a good race.
That's
for
a fantastic result. I think an average speed close to 40 kilometers an hour. So really impressive ride from Sylvia.
Aymar, it's not Cyril Aymar, was also a famous French rider. It was not written that way, but it's a good name for bicycle racing.
Absolutely, but a great race for all, and I think also it's really great to see. I think when we see these esports races, riders of every level. And certainly for people who want to try ROUVY, to want to join one of the future events, very easy to sign up with ROUVY to try the platform. You can sign up for trial subscription. There's going to be many more events coming up. Obviously, we have Le Doyen next week, but of course, ROUVY Benelux has many more events planned. I think there's going to be a very exciting future for ROUVY here in the Benelux in the coming months and years.
What advice can you give the riders now? Because we see often now in the real races in real time, they get on the bike for 5 or 10 minutes. Is it a good thing also when you
Absolutely.
after this race
three
to
things,
continue?
Three things is just to keep pedaling do a good easy 5 to 10 minutes to try to clear out some of that lactate, especially from that really heavy effort towards the end with the sprint. Secondly, as we see Frederick doing right now, is hydration, because you've lost a lot of fluids, and then within 10-15 minutes of getting off the bike, you want to also replenish some of those carbohydrates as well. So clear out the lactate, wind the legs down, drink, and eat.
Okay. I think we have some minutes for Frederick. If Frederick can come with us here, or... Okay.
So we're going to have an ad break, and we'll then invite Frederick in.
Okay, and afterwards we have a talk with Frederick.
Perfect.
Time from...
De schepen van jeugd en onderwijs elke de vrijheid.
Als schepen van jeugd doet mij dat deugd om nieuwe initiatieven te zien die ook de jeugd echt gaan aanspreken.
Came up a lot of sounds, more when I was not around. Certain people that I know, they ain't no longer about. Unless you heard it from me, then you ain't heard it from me. Got it from me, all the energy extra. When the bass gets moved, couple hits to the face. I know that I need time now, so I gotta go and find my way. Why they wanna move like that? Why they wanna move like that? Why you want one? Why you want act like that? Why you play hard? Unless you heard it from me, then you ain't heard it from me. Got it from me, all the energy extra. Old guy, old man, old school, young jam, all black, MZ, still screaming out that chain gang. When the bass gets moved, couple hits to the face. I know that I need time now, so I gotta go and find my way. Why they wanna move like that? Why they wanna move like that? Why you want one? Why you want act like that? Why you play hard? Get girls but ain't a gallus. Soul shit but ain't a villa. I held a gun but ain't a killer. Can I keep it any realer?
want you to stay. I 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 want you to stay.
And a big hand of applause for Frederick Van Reckem, 26th position,
Thank you.
4th Belgian rider.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the race. It was a hell of a race, and
And a hell of the end.
how do you feel after
Tired.
this race?
Yeah. A little bit cramps at the end,
Yeah.
but that's normal. It's practically 50 minutes till the end. Yeah.
Last week you did the Amstel.
Yeah.
What's the big difference between these two races?
The Amstel is shorter, but you have the climbs in
Mhm.
between. Then you have the descent, and you can recover a little bit. Now it's no recovery. You have to keep pushing, 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 and in the end, when you try to follow a group or someone who's better than you, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, sometimes you push yourself to the limits, and in the end, you pay it cash.
Yeah.
Then you have cramps, and that was my problem at the end. I did a little spurt, but no juice anymore.
No. Where was the most difficult part for you? We had 10 sections. Did you feel already after certain sections
Yeah,
this becomes difficult?
Yeah, number 6.
Mm-hmm.
From number 6, it's getting harder and harder and harder.
Yeah.
Because it's always going a little bit up, and you have to put watts, and you feel it in the legs.
Yeah. Sometimes one has cramps when he doesn't drink or not hydrate enough. I don't know, you couldn't follow what we said here, or you could follow?
No.
No?
I was concentrating on my race. So
Jamie told us you have to drink about 2.5-3 liters during this race.
yeah, but I'm used to ride
Mm-hmm.
in the interior on ROUVY.
Mhm.
So when you do a race, I don't take the time to drink a lot.
Okay.
That's maybe my mistake. I'm gonna try to stay in focus, what he said.
Yeah.
So drink a little bit more, but I don't think it's from not drinking, because I drank a lot before the race. So and I drank 70 centiliters of my mix that I prepared at home. So I think it was just putting too much watts, and because I went over my limit several times.
Yeah, okay. And you have to remember that when you are training, you don't get too warm and too much sweat. That's also what Jamie told. In fact, he told us what he's doing now is not really so good.
No.
You get too far.
Yeah, too far. You go over your limits. You sweat too much.
Yeah.
You go over your temperature also,
Mhm.
because I think when you take my temperature now of my body, I'm sure I have fever now.
And with ROUVY, it's a hell of an experience. Jamie also told us, but besides the bicycle is not moving, you have really the experience of
Yeah, if
the
you
real
have-
race.
Yeah, it's practically the same as outside. I said practically, so
Yeah.
it's getting very close to.
You finished with the first women. You mentioned that.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a hard race because the first women. I look here. So we have. If I have a look here, if I can have the women here on my screen. Yes, Sylvia de Gast, the Dutch one.
The Dutch one,
she
yeah.
won. So you were 3 places before her, and Heike Hart, who finished second, won the 3 previous races.
That's right. I saw
Yeah.
her last week also.
Yeah.
So I tried to stay with her.
Mhm.
But yeah, they are professional riders, so it's a big difference.
You know the other riders, you were the 4th Belgian, you have Nick Riekemans on the 6th position, Jarko van den Brande 16th, then Stijn Hospier 22nd, and you 26th. You know them in real, or
No.
you don't have
No.
contact with other riders now?
No,
Not
not
really.
yet, but it's coming.
Yep.
Because ROUVY is growing fast, so I think it's just a matter of time to meet other people and make nice friends on ROUVY and try to put on trainings or races together and play a little bit, like we said.
Okay. We had the Hell of the North today, we had the Amstel, you also rode,
Yeah.
the Hills of Flanders,
I did it also, but not the race. I was too
Okay.
late.
and the true, yes, that's maybe some
Yeah.
good thing for people who want to ride.
Yeah.
We were
You have
176. You have to
Yeah.
make the inscription in time. Eh?
Yeah, and you have 3 times. You can
Mhm.
do the Asia
Time
time,
slots, yes. Okay.
and then you can do the the Europe time and the
Yep.
American time.
Yep.
So you can do it at 3 different times. So
Okay. And now we have La Doyenne.
yeah,
we will see Frederick also in La Doyenne.
Probably yes.
Yes, and
If the work's not keeping growing like this week, because I have very lots of work, so I try to compare it or combine it that I can do the race at the evening. So I have also a little girl of 4 years old, so I have to keep watching her too.
And I told Jamie what you're doing in real life, and he says he has a lot of windows in Parike to wash.
Yeah.
So
He
you
said
have a
it to
new
me
client.
also.
You
Yeah.
have you have a new client. Okay.
Yeah.
So to resume this race, the hardest one up till now, or is it difficult to compare them?
It's difficult to compare, but yeah, for sure that was the toughest one. From the ROUVY time that I did until now, that's the hardest thing that I did.
Okay, so we have the last one for the ROUVY races, the La Doyenne, next week, same time at 7 p.m. We also like to thank our sponsors.
Yeah.
We have Anymotion, who
From
organizes everything with
from
Jan Morre.
Yeah.
Yes. Then we have also the ROUVY Benelux League.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't know, but Jamie Anderson becomes the first ambassador of the Benelux League. So it's important.
Yeah.
He has the experience.
For
He has
sure.
the theoretical. He has the practical experience. So there was no better man to choose for ROUVY. Then we have Barvatar, people who didn't come here earlier should come. You were here earlier days?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know the place?
Yep.
You can only advise people to come here.
Yeah, for sure. You
to
can come
play
with your
games and everything.
girlfriend or your wife and with your children, and you can stay here and play some little games and have a nice time.
Okay. Then we have We Are Sports Agency, also one of the sponsors here, and we have DC Athletics. So we thank all these sponsors
For sure.
for making this possible and for giving you and so many riders a good moment. Eh?
Yeah, the opportunity to train and to race against each other and to get better.
Yeah.
Or to just having fun.
Yeah.
That's my case. So just having fun.
So ROUVY is something to remember.
Yeah, for sure.
Those who don't know ROUVY.
Yeah.
Okay.
Try it.
So- And we have prizes. I repeat, we have prizes to win, not for the first, the second, or the third. Prizes who will be distributed between the competitors. We have one Tornado Tom Boonen trainer. We have 5 travel for the Spring Classics in 2023. Then we have sportswear, and we have also here you can come to the Barvatar Center here, and you can play games. We'll see you back. We'll see competitors back.
Yeah.
We wish you success with your 26th place, Frederick.
Thank you very much.
And lots of success for the next one, La Doyenne, to go.
Yeah, that's for climbers, I think.
And what
That's
are you going to do now?
Now I'm gonna drink a good beer with you and with Jan.
And what do you prefer? Which is your beer you prefer?
I live on the Oude Quaremont, so...
That was the last thing I wanted to say. You couldn't choose a better place for a rider to live. You live on the middle of the Oude Quaremont, so you have cobblestones. When you go out and when you come back, the last thing or the first thing you see is cobblestones.
Yeah,
so
always.
No better. Okay, thank you, Frederick. Wish you a good way
Also,
home
thank
to
you
the
very much.
Quaremont, and lots of success next week in La Doyenne.
Thank you,
also
everyone.
thank you. I'll also thank all the competitors, and don't forget inscriptions for next week. We have La Doyenne, the last one of the 5 races. Good luck for everyone, and wish you a pleasant evening. Bye bye.
Good night.
De schepen van jeugd en onderwijs elke dag vrijhouden.
De schepen van jeugd doen mij dat deugd om nieuwe initiatieven te zien die ook de jeugd echt gaan aanspreken.